My name is Xander and I am 13 years old. I live in the Tulsa Boys Home and I've been here for 6 months. I had a mentally and verbally abusive stepmother who had caused me to do angry stuff to my step siblings and caused me to run away. DHS gets called on them. I get taken away. Before I went to the boys' home, I was back and forth from the shelter place. It was really unfair. If you did something wrong, you'd get consequence for it. Like, they wouldn't really give you much of a chance to prove yourself. My discharge date came, and I saw the Tulsa Boys Home. I was really excited because I looked at it, and this place had a lot of stuff. It was a really nice looking place. My mentor's name is Mr. Brett O'Neill. He is an owner of a construction company called Sparks Construction. He is a really, really nice person. He does a lot of stuff with me and he takes me places. He usually picks me up around dinner time. That way we can eat a meal. He also teaches me things to do in life that will keep you from doing other things in life that you don't want to do. I didn't think about my future back then. I'd think about killing people and I would also sometimes think about killing myself, and it was a dark time. And I felt like the only friend I would have was God. And this place healed that. Believe me, I was different back then. And it gives you hope, because as you heal, you get hope from it. I have hope for my future and for my family.
So my story leading up to the Tulsa Boys Home, I actually just got out of JDC, Juvenile Detention Center in Tulsa, Oklahoma. I had anger issues. I didn't like authority. A lot of it was because I was abandoned as a kid. At an early age, I was abandoned. It was like, well, you're not gonna be there for me then. Why you wanna be there for me now when I'm already, a teenager now? Like, I was overall out of control. And that's ultimately what led me up to go into the boys' home. The first 3 months was a struggle. There was a particular staff by the name of Terry Bradford. I just looked at him as the biggest staff on campus that he didn't have a problem wrapping up a kid, and I was like, yeah, that's who I'm getting. I'm getting him one way or the other. And I think where it changed for me was when one day he pulled me into his lodge and he cut my hair, and I got to sit down and I got to know the guy. He's really just wanted to take time to get to know me and build a rapport with me. And I think that meant a lot to me, because I never had people that took the time to do that for me. Believe it or not, I got restraint one night. And I think at that point, for me, it was like, what am I angry about? Why do I need to be angry for nothing? And from that point on, the rest was all history. From there, I got out of the Tulsa Boys Home and picked up a trade, learned how to weld. It wasn't until 2018, it was in March, I went and pursued my career at the Tulsa Boys Home. I never thought in a million years that I could have the choice, the freedom to walk away and be successful. You have that power. You can make that decision that I don't have to live like this. I can be something. I couldn't imagine how many boys have come into that program in the last 100 years. But if I could change one life, that's enough for me. And you're looking at one of the lives out of that 100 years that was changed and transformed into something positive. There is hope on the other side. The healing is very real.
My mom and my dad were drug addicts and alcoholics, and so my dad really wasn't there. And then my biological mom, she literally was not there. I went into custody when I was 8, and then I went to the Tulsa Boys Home when I was 13 or something. So it was 4 or 5 years that I just went from place to place. The first shelter I went in was Laura Dester. I was very scared. I was one of the smaller kids at the shelter, and then I got put in the big kids when I was 12, and so I always got pushed around and beat up, and they didn't really pay attention to me. They paid attention to the bigger kids and what they needed. When I got to the Tulsa Boys Home, I expected it to be a little bit better than the shelter or something like that. And it was a lot better. The staff were there. They cared for every single kid that they had. And I think the thing that helped me the most there was they had volunteers and things like that. And so these volunteers would come and they would help us out and take us places and just like be there for us. And we know that they would be there for us. Every other place had no structure. And when I got to the Tulsa Boys Home, they were there all the time. They had rules. I had very bad anger issues. And so they would always try and help me, and nobody else tried to help me. So they would like send me to my room at the shelter, and I would just go ballistic on everything. But like at Tulsa Boys Home, the staff would come in my room and talk to me, and I didn't know how to handle it. So I'm just like, leave me alone. I don't want to talk to you. But eventually I figured out how to deal with that a little bit and let them talk to me.
When we first read Brandon's case file, the thing that popped out to me more than anything was he had been taken out of his family when he was about 5 years old, and then he had bounced around and he'd been to 14 different placements by the time that we met him the first time. And for me, that was astounding. It took me a long time to even grasp how somebody could make it through that. We'd made up our mind that we were going to adopt, but we very much wanted to kind of maintain the birth order placement. We were looking for a younger kid.
It was the first morning of the DHS training when you leaned over and wrote on my piece of paper, "I think we need to consider older kids." And I called the DHS worker at lunch and I said, "Okay, let's bump up the age to like 8 or 10. She said, "Are you sure? That's a big jump." And I said, "Yeah, we're sure."
I work with Brandon's brother, his older brother, Bobby.
You went to lunch with Bobby and we heard about Brandon. And he called me and said, "I found our kid. It's a 13-year-old boy." And then I said, no, that is not what we had planned. But for weeks and weeks through all of this, God had been using different circumstances and people to tell me that older kids need mommies and daddies too.
And then one day at the Tulsa Boys Home, somebody showed up to see me. I came out and then this little 4-year-old runs down the hall. I was like, "Hi, Brandon." And I'm like, "Hi, I don't know who you are." So we went out. I think we went to Rhema. They called and said, "Can he stay the night next time we come pick him up?" And they said, "Sure." And then I think we called, and then he was like, "Can you stay another night and another night?" And then I think it turned into like a week or a week and a half that I stayed with them. And then July 5th, 2016, I was adopted. I was nervous because I've never really had anybody that said, "Hey, you're my son." I wanted to come before they were like, "Hey, you're staying with us forever." And that's what they said a lot was, "You're staying with us forever if you make this decision." And I think that's cool that I could stay with them forever.